How's it going, everybody? Uh, okay. So this won't be a visual. Definitely won't be a visual one today. I just say listen to what I have to say. Okay, in regards to culture, I believe that one of the biggest pitfalls and one of the greater parts in aspects to black culture, for me, I am speaking from the perspective of myself, in general, black culture, and also just things that could help black culture in general. One of the things that was a detriment is are these slavery movies, these stick it to the man kind of movies that's similar to like um, Django, Grand, it's not Gran Torino. I cannot remember his name, but he's the guy who makes Pulp Fiction and Django Unchained and some other stuff. Reason for one of the things, like Django Unchained kind of seemed like those films that was like it was a fantasy, kind of like it was like revenge fantasy almost. But people liked it. It was fancy, it was flashy, and it had I still can't remember his name. It's not Gran Torino. It's something else. Something. I can't remember his name. I feel like it's on the tip of my tongue. Um, but yeah, it's they're flashy. You know, he has all types of the movies where they're flashy and there's guns and there's action and there's just like those casual talks and he knows how to make a movie that you want to see. Just the contemporary man wants to see. And so coming into the aspects of it, I feel like movies similar to like Black Panther and even Django Unchained. Because even though it it was a slight mockery of slavery, it was almost like they used slavery to appeal to us, and that's kind of strange to me because it's like whenever people of outside cultures try to do that, it almost seems underhanded and cheap. Where they say, "Hey, this is what you want, right?" And ironically, it is what we want from outside cultures that's not our own. We want a stylish movie. We want a movie that is authentic to us. We want a movie where we can say, we are not oppressed no more. We're not victims." But I think Django Unchained it was strange because it was painted, it was almost teasing to us because it was saying, hey, guess what, guys? The black person then wasn't a slave. He was actually whipping slaves. And we were just like, that's grossly, uh, it was a lie. You know, the most we got was what, Nat Turner and John Brown, and they both died. They were not successful as far as I could tell. The ones who weren't pulling offensive games, but defensive games and like things covert things. So why was Black Panther so successful? Because it was kind of what we wanted to see. It was shown to be interesting. It was shown to be um, um, um it was shown to be that movie we wanted to see. And when I saw it, I was really blinded by the culture too. I saw it. I was very happy to see it. I was very enthralled to see it. I was like, when I saw it, I was like, this told in a very concise manner how we got to where we were, how they got to where they were. It's like a very short place, and it was just like that love letter that we needed from ourselves, which I'm glad that Marvel had got. I forget the director's name, but I'm glad they got him in there. Because he appreciated the culture as a whole, and that's very hard to do because um, Kublai, Africa, is a very very big continent with a lot of different cultures. I can't remember. Is it countries? Is it nations? It's like it's not really like America or North America, where it consists of um, where it consists of like America and Canada, and South America. You got the other stuff in Central America. It's like the countries within North America, but it's Africa. And you have all those little ones. They're not states. I don't even think they're provinces or uh what's the other word for them? I mean provinces or prefectures. They're nation. I think they're countries. I believe someone once told me that. I think they're countries. And so incorporating all these things into one place, one movie is a hard task to do. It's very hard, very hard. And so considering all that, I think that's amazing. I think you did a great job. But those who look at it as just a pure written standpoint, and I'm not gonna front. When I saw Thor Ragnarok or seeing the other Thor movies, I was not thinking about Norse mythology. So it's inversely like it that didn't reach me. And Thor is a Norse god, I believe, and I didn't care too much about the authenticity of Thor. He wasn't in my cultural lens, so I didn't pay too much attention to it. But for those who are essentially in American culture, even though they say they're not in a culture at all, they're actually in American culture, which isn't a pro African culture. It's not even a African American culture. It is a African culture. But those are the people who continue to say, let's just be human. And I'm like, we already are human. So what are you saying? And typically, I like to say for those who claim they practice no culture, no group, whose culture are you adapting to? Because I'm like, you adopt the culture. You are not an alien from outer space. You adopt your own culture. You adopt the cadence with the similar people. It's not that the fact that these are what matters and the others don't. It's just the fact that this is a culture that you adopt. I grew up. I was born in Chicago. Can I say grew up kind of in Chicago, but also in Wisconsin. So I picked up Wisconsin and Wisconsin. I have no idea. Wisconsinite dialect. But even within there, in Wisconsin, there are many different dialects, many different places. I was in the South, so I developed partially that. And even then, you notice the differences, you notice the culture, you notice you in the culture, you have eyes, you see it. But going back to it, I think Black Panther was great, not from a movie standpoint. I didn't pay too much attention. They said CGI was a problem. I think the final battle could have been better, but I thought it was great because it was like using tools to his advantage. He was using intelligence. And they took into account the trains and stuff. I thought that was great. But culture's like we can't say we can't raise our hands and say it's not our responsibility. It makes me think about European Emperor Haile Selassie. How now again, I don't know where his origin is, but I know he was able to, and maybe with some help, I don't know, but he was able to make Ethiopia a nation, I believe, from what I can understand. I think he made it a nation. What I am suggesting in this video is that cultures are important. And in American culture, there's this, and I even saw from this TED talk from this guy about white culture. He was saying in regards to whites and white privilege. But he himself wasn't speaking condemn. He wasn't condemning them. He was merely telling them to acknowledge their own culture. And one thing they tend to do, there's a majority, well, I can say the majority, but he's more so speaking to generally whites. And yes, whites definitely differ. Polish, German, yada, yada, yada. Irish, yada, yada, yada. But he's talking about generally whites in America. When they're Americanized, he says you need to acknowledge you have a culture. Love you, know your culture, and I agree. You should definitely know your culture, and see that in respect to someone else in their culture. Because as a majority to suggest you don't have a culture, or that culture is just not important, is irresponsible to say. And because it is an ignorant thing to say, it lacks knowledge. Those are statements that lack knowledge. To say, hey, I don't have a culture, I don't follow culture, I'm just human. No, you follow culture, you follow a group of standards, a group of customs. Even if those cultures are live and let live, you still follow cultures. I mean, you still follow a way of doing things, a set way of doing things. Whether it's blind patriotism, respecting your police, respecting your veterans, all of that. And I'm not saying blind patriotism, but sometimes it does seem like blind patriotism. And this isn't a criticism just for whites, but this is a criticism for just the average American, where they deny culture, they deny their own culture, and say, no, I'm a human and all I am is just an American. It's just like, no, you belong somewhere, you know. Regardless if you've abandoned your culture and accepted American culture, you still belong somewhere. That's people of other cultures. They remind their children that even if they're predominantly an American culture and they speak like American, they still remind them that you come from somewhere. You should appreciate your heritage. And I think, and it's not, and as far as I can tell, I don't think all white people share a racist heritage. I don't think so. I think they have a culture that's redeemable, that's great, that has its upsides, it has its perks, its benefits, has inventions, has rich cultural life. But perhaps is even more than just the potato famine, even more than St. Patrick's Day, even more than, I guess, perhaps Catholicism, supposed Catholicism, even more things. What is it? Is it a wake? An Irish wake? Yeah, it made me think about Kel on Stage's friend Jay Hollingsworth, or Big Irish Jay. Like I believe he's Irish. He speaks about things. They have like the bagpipes, and they have just their own culture, and that's okay. They should have their own culture. Because we should stop denying that culture even exists. And even within our culture, we still need to fix ourselves. We need to fix things. Even when it's in black culture, this elitism that may suggest or may pop its rear its ugly head. Where it say, this is the monolith of culture, of black culture. And if you don't fit it, then you're not real. You're not a actual black person. And I think that's not authentic. That's unauthentic. Because you force us to conform to a standard that you made up. And I don't think that's fair. That's not fair to anybody, to suggest that, all black people vote for Democrats. I mean, that's sad, because I'm like, some of these candidates, some of these presidents, like Hillary Clinton, like just whatever. They guess you could say they did great things, but it's just like they reach out. These candidates reach out to the black community, and they hoop and holler, and they say they'll do things, and then they disappear. They move on. Maybe they'll do things that are noticeable. Maybe it'll be for a moment. Maybe it'll be here and there, where it's like, oh, I noticed this, I noticed that. But it's like, I don't believe that they're going to be invested to the common good of the country. Or, no, I'm sorry, not the country, but the common good of black people. And diversity, again, that's diversity. Diversity is just way too huge. I like to believe, just like with African culture, there has to be someone in a head. There has to be some cultural head. Just like in organizations, there's a head, there's a CEO. In culture, and that's why they call the majority and there's minorities, as far as I can tell. It's bad because that majority doesn't They are so disillusioned with the fact that their culture is dominant. I don't know about competence. Maybe it is competence because they check the minorities and then even disillusion their own people to think, well, they're at the bottom for a reason, and then rationalize that reason. I mean, rationalize and just said, okay, yeah, there of course there are reasons. Like Black Panther Party, they say Black Panther Party is terrorists. They said they're like domestic terrorists. You know, don't know. Maybe some of them got some problems. Maybe some of them committed some harsh crimes. But I understand a different perspective from them. I don't think they've committed great wrongs. I think they've done things for the community, breakfasts, tried to work with people. But what can I say? You know, I just understand, recognize that society, and government's big brother. Big brother's gonna look over all his little brothers, look over his favorites, look over the rest of the little children, and suggest what he should do with them, even if it means lying to him. And I'm not saying that the big brother is actually lying, but I think we've had proof that they're not telling always the truth. But yeah, and I'm like, I get it, and I'm not anti-government. I'm pro-government. I love the government. I understand where the government's coming from. It has to protect us, even if it means not telling us fully the truth. I get it. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'm not gonna say they should tell us fully everything. I mean, there's things even in smaller circles that we keep from other people. That's like saying, like download man, I guess if we could say that, you know, or and it sucks. I don't know. I mean, I do know, but I'm not gonna speak on it. I just think there's a bunch of things there in which it'd be better not to say. There's just better left unsaid, and things that just are better left unheard heard of. You know, like if someone was married and that person actually wasn't attracted to him, or wasn't not so much attracted, but if that person actually had a different orientation than him, and then they would just set on one orientation, I do think that would have been I don't know, that's a tricky situation. I was gonna say that, but there's a lot more to that. But I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot there. But yeah, culture is a very mixed pot, and there's a reason why black people are striving to be pro-black, and why pre and pro-white is at times an issue. And trust me, it seems unfair, but historically it makes sense. Historically, there's the context for it. Pro-white back in the day meant anti-black. It actually meant anti-everything. Anti-European, anti-Irish, anti-Italian at one point. It was just like, if you don't look like us, then you're not with us. And then it slowly was just a general white thing. But yeah, it was very slow to get everybody integrated. And even then, like the remnants of different cultures still had this protective mentality of their own culture. Like when you see immigrants, they still huddle together. They still, even in business, they still huddle together, protective. Because they know that they shouldn't let their guard fully down. They know that they should keep themselves protected. Even the Jewish professions of work, like doctors and such, their connections. And it's not like bad. I'm like, they do what everybody do, what cultures do. They protect themselves. The thing is just like, I think one of our greatest things will be just loving ourselves, loving our culture, and not being afraid because if somebody wants to ostracize us because they don't understand the importance of culture, the importance of respecting your culture, the importance of loving your culture and loving yourself, and just saying, hey, these are my brothers in this specific context. You know, it's not bad. Even if you're, I like to think personally, if you're a Christian, it's good to know your culture, but your culture shouldn't be first and foremost. But I do believe your culture is important. Because how are you going to interact with them if you're Irish, and of course, from what I understand, it's tied to Catholicism. But if it wasn't, well, let's say there's other cultural ties to them. You know, how are you going to attach yourself to them, not just as humans, but just as a people group? Because we like to familiarize ourselves. Our brain likes to um, make things understandable and simplified and make things work, in patterns and organizations and compartmentalizations and stuff like that. Like, our brain is very good at doing it. It's compartmentalizing things. So why not compartmentalize a people group who think the same, who walk the same, who do the same things? That that's not too far off. So that's all I got. I'm sorry, I was so loud. But I just want to encourage people. I'm like, America has a culture, and if I get the chance, I'll try to link that TED talk, because it was this white fellow who's very smart guy, because he his approach to it was not only teaching white men to understand their culture and appreciate it, but also to be curious and to be a bit more humble and understanding. And not so much humble in terms of like making you feel disgraced, but humble in a sense of like making you more curious. Making you just far more. I mean, making you just believe like, okay, how did I make a oops on this one? You know, let me make this right. Let me talk to you. I know my culture, so let me understand yours, because we're different. We have different way of doing things. I mean, he has a great understanding, great cultural understanding. I think it was amazing. So, um, yeah, I'll definitely link that. All right, see y'all later.